All right, everyone, welcome to what we're now calling the Friday market finale. So, if you guys have just been tuning into this, I've started to upload more videos on the channel. The plan is to do an upload every day except Tuesdays. Tuesdays, I will still be sending out an email to everybody, but that will be highlighting whatever we talked about on the podcast on Monday. A new podcast that I'm on with my buddy Dave, who's another systematic trader called Line Your Own Pockets, where we talk systematic trading. So, just to summarize, on Monday, we are going to dive deeper into Forex and cryptocurrencies. So, it's going to be Forex Market Mondays. We're going to dive real deep into that sector. So, for the people who are interested really in Forex or in crypto, there's going to be a lot more information about that there. We'll cover broad market, what happened in this one, but deep into individual currencies and trade ideas for them and cryptocurrencies and trade ideas for those. That will happen on Monday. I'll try to get that out pretty early in the morning. Tuesdays, no video for the channel, but I'll be doing an email just summarizing the podcast and pointing you guys to that podcast. So make sure you're going to statsedgetrading.com or use the link in the description below or down below the video to make sure you're signed up for the email list so you can make sure you get all these. On Wednesday, we're going to do what we call Wisdom Wednesday, where I'm going to just some sort of example that I can find that has something to do with quantitative trading or thinking of the mathematics behind trading and trying to give that in a easily distilled way to the audience. That'll be every Wednesday. I say every, it'll be most. Life happens. I'm a father of two. Thursday, we're going to do some sort of technical Thursday where we're going to look at charts. I'm going to try to give some example from an indicator that I see or something. This one was just about how staying out of SMCI was pretty obvious if you looked at the relative strength of that compared to other semiconductors. And then Friday, again, the Friday market finale, where we're going to zoom out to the weekly charts and take a look at what happened this week. I'm going to try this. Let me know what you guys think. It's obviously more work, but the goal is to try to push myself to put more content out there, to hopefully make better content for you guys, and to give the free StatsEdge Lite subscribers more content. If you're interested in more actionable ideas and things that are output from my algorithms, access to my Discord room, that's going to be StatsEdge Pro. You can sign up for that, again, using the link in the description below, or you can go to statsedgetrading.com and everything I do is right there on that site. Oh, all right. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. We are always going to start here. I clicked on the wrong one. We're going to go over to, is it this one? It's this one right there. And we're going to take a look at Bitcoin still. We're still going to look at Bitcoin. We're still going to look at the dollar index, but just individual currencies we're going to dive into. Now, I'm going to caveat what I'm about to say with the fact that I've been wrong a few times on this, even though I've been very cautious about my wording. Bitcoin looks like it could be ready. The crypt and in that the whole cryptocurrency universe could be ready. Now, what do I mean by that? So we have let's just remove some of these. This is a very typical kind of cup and handle style pattern, as it would be drawn, in any textbook that you would look at for trading. You have the giant cup, you have the little handle here, and you're going to look for a breakout. The problem with patterns, people following Bitcoin for a while will know it looked like a cup and handle right here, and it looked at like a cup and handle right here. So if we zoom in a little bit closer to this weekly chart, it's looked like it's going to go many times. The way I look at trend lines and things like that is like anything, the amount of times it's tested will show you eventually it's going to go through. However, the more times it's tested, the higher the probability. So say, a double top, you say there's a 50% chance it's going to go through. Then a triple top, maybe you say, it's 25 or it's a 75% chance it's going to go through. And the next one, it's going to be an 80 and 90% chance that it's going to go through. Not saying that there's a 90% chance that Bitcoin's going to go higher. I'm just saying that each time a trend line or a level of support or resistance is tested, the more times it's tested, the more times it has a probability to go through. And it looks like, again, we could be in that frame right there. I always tell you guys when I talk my book, I talked about how I was buying some Bitcoin on this dip right here and that dip right there. but I want to get in a full position if we break this trend line. So I have orders in place. I have that all systematized already. But I'm already talking my book. I do want this thing to move higher. And if we get a breakout from a cup and handle, if you just want to have a little fun, take a look at this. The very classical chartist way of talking about what the price target is of something is you take the width of the pattern, in this case from the low to the high of the cup, and you put that on the breakout point, and that's what, $330,000 a share. So there's the headline for those people out there. Not predicting that it could take years, because this whole cup and handle thing has taken about 5 years. So that could be a thing as well. I don't know how much stake I put in those kind of predictions from patterns, but the cup and handle to me is a pattern that I love quite a bit because it just makes perfect sense. You had a downtrend, we've kind of ground our way back up to that prior high, and then that was March of 2024. And now for the rest of the year, we've just kind of been consolidating, chopping sideways, not really much action. There's been a lot of people trying to predict one way or the other and spent the whole year wasting their time. Again, this looks like a little bit more interesting. And the only reason I say that is just because we're getting closer to this upper trend line. So I'm going to be watching this in the weekend, potentially for an ad, but who knows? With the whole world watching this, I'm certainly not like some really smart technician that's watching this. The entire planet's watching this. Uh, could fail spectacularly, but we got to take our bets when we see our setups, and that's one of the setups I like. So I got to take this bet. DXY continues its kind of breakdown here. So this is exactly what I talked about, I guess, with the other chart there with Bitcoin, was that if you look closely, you can see some indicators there, right? One, two, a little bit of a bleed through. So we'll call it 3, 4, and now 5 tests of this support area. Might be finally time for this to give way. However, we are getting a bit extended. Let's just put up for fun, let's just put up an RSI here. Yeah, we are getting pretty oversold in the RSI. Doesn't mean that I would buy it just because of it. Just means that this break, because we got oversold to get here, might not be that clean. Maybe we've got to do a little back and forth action before things break. But that's the dollar index and what's going on there. Gold made a lot of new highs this week. New weekly closing high in gold. A little bit of a sell off today, but this is again something we'll cover deeply on Monday. And then silver trying, it had the breakout here that it was retested. Now that we're back up in this zone right here, again, it's attempting to break this zone. It seems to be failing a little bit at this price right here. So we got to keep that in mind. If this is going to be just like we talked about on Bitcoin, a cup and handle failure, we have to be okay for that if that's going to happen. So now let's get into the S&P 500, and let's take a look at, as always, we're going to start with the SPY, and you can see by the daily chart here, not a whole lot has happened this week. We do have a theme that we're definitely going to go over with China, but right, this is the weekly candle. The weekly candle is now closed, and it was just a little do nothing doji type candle. So we're up 3 in a row. We've made a new weekly all-time closing highs. Certainly nothing bearish about making new weekly all-time closing highs. However, it's just a little candle. Sometimes when you see this pattern of candles getting smaller and smaller and smaller as they move higher, it can show that there may be some momentum waning. So if we look at this trend right here, you can see this candle. This candle is bigger than this one. We have a couple small candles, but then we make a bigger candle again, and then a small candle. Where I think a good pattern to show this is these last few days. We had this massive week, another giant week that was smaller than the week before it. Then this week, that was smaller than the week before that. And then this week, that again was smaller than the week before that. So just showing that might be a little bit of a loss of momentum up here. I am still in the camp that I expect some sort of chop to occur when we're coming into the election. We're going to have this back and forth while the market tries to sit on its hands and wait for some definitive action to happen on November. Maybe I'll do a whole special quantitative. Maybe that's what I'll do for quantitative Wednesday. Let me actually write that down on the election stuff and the mathematics behind the election stuff. Because at the end of the day, right, put your politics aside when you're trading. Of course, it doesn't matter who wins historically. All that matters is that somebody wins, and that certainty is done. I'm just making a note here. Live on camera. Um, Wednesday election. Perfect. So, right, we know that something's going to occur, and when that occurs, then we will have some sort of certainty that the market can kind of breed upon. But just like we did last time, let's take a look at things like tech. We go QQQs. Now we're looking at the tech side of things. Still hasn't made that all-time highs and relatively weak to this as well. If we look at semis, SMH, mhm, still hasn't even not close to all-time highs. We haven't even broken this high right here. And then obviously, right, we've got some room to go and more of a topping tail there as well. So we are seeing some relative weakness still in the semiconductor space, but things are moving elsewhere in the markets, and I think that's what's uh, causing that strength. So KWeb, right, this is something I've been talking about for a while with China. We've had a massive move in China this week. A bunch of stimulus dropped. The Chinese is basically trying to prop up their governments. Um, you know, for better or for worse in the long run. I'm not an economist. I don't know anything about those things, but this is a nice breakout. And notice the volume that's occurred here as well. So a nice breakout on very high volume, getting very, very strong there as well. So China is looking good. We own some already. Uh, I don't know how much more I would buy up here, but it's a multi-year base breakout. So these things can get going. So as we start to look for things, China is definitely something we want to focus on. We even had a little bit of move today in TAN, which is solar, a little bit of a pop off of support. UNG had a nice week in UNG as again it continues to move off of this support level. You got to zoom in on this chart or it looks really, really bad. So we are seeing some strength elsewhere and under the hood. It's just not in these mega cap tech names, which is great unless you're someone who only trades these mega cap tech names, which again, I don't know why you would do that to yourself. A couple other sectors that I just wanted to look at real quick is we can take a look at some of these energy names and just see the relative weakness when it comes to energy. Energy up on the day, still you can see this weekly chart compared to the S&P 500, even to big tech doing very, very poorly. So when we see what's going on, we're seeing this boom in China, and that's creating some kind of trickle down effects when it comes to different markets, right? If the Chinese economy is strong, things like copper and wheat, and we have XRT here, which is real estate, which I really want to highlight here, that has the potential of breaking out of this tight base right here, moving higher. A nice, strong week in real estate, but I think when you start to think of what's going to happen this week, you take a look at that by what could occur in the overall market based off of this China news, right? If the Chinese economy is strong, what is it that we think that we'll see to change from the close here? What is it that we think what we'll see to potentially move higher and move higher for longer, right? As we look at kind of this is the trade ideas race view and all of that that's focused on the top list that I have above. You can see the things that were moving around today. Again, a lot of China, a lot of natural gas. PBW is I believe, water. Yeah, or clean energy. It's clean energy ETF. So that'd be the same with solar that was happening earlier. A lot of that stuff moving. Arc was kind of last one I want to look at, and the reason for this is Arc is the worst of the worst, the junkiest. I think Kathy Wood has been declared the biggest wealth destroyer of our entire decade, and we're kind of seeing that here in Arc as well. So we want to kind of understand when these things are occurring and we want to focus on these things as they're occurring, but we want to know that these are junky names, and if they're rallying the junky names, we need to understand that the market's entering maybe a phase of euphoria. Once the worst of the worst rally, then it might be time to ride that trend as long as we can, but know that at some point the chickens are going to come home to roost. Now, could it be 2 years from now and the ARC names take off again? Absolutely. It's just when I start seeing ARC show up on my new highs list over and over again, I start to get a little bit worried. But we're going to continue to stay long. We're going to continue to ride things long as far as as well as they look. But for me, when it comes to thinking about what I want to trade going into next week, uh, most of that is obviously going to come from my algorithms. But the ones that aren't, I'm going to start thinking China. If China is consuming more and building more, names like copper names and shippers and things like this might be an end up an interesting thing to do, because again, as if one of the largest population centers turn on, what are they going to buy? And if we can figure out what they're going to buy, then that makes sense. Some of the other things that I heard of that made a little bit of sense to me was like Las Vegas Sands, which had a massive move because they have a lot of gambling and resorts and things like that that are outside of the US. So check names like that out. But I really think, right, with the theme we saw this week was China. So let's mull that around our heads this week until next week and try to give some good names that we could potentially play that are related but not exactly related to that as well. So I hope you guys like these more frequent videos. Let me know what you think, right? Likes, comments, shares, feedbacks, all that kind of stuff. I absolutely love it. And until I see you guys next week, get away from the screens.